So I think right now will be a really great time. Let's talk about these dogs for a second. So
Okay.
what are painted dogs? Why are they so unique and so special? And then also maybe could you also explain why are they having such a hard time right now? So all of those things right now. Just give us like a mini lecture on dogs.
Okay. All right. Painted dog is, it's got many names. Some people call it African wild dog. Some people call them painted wolf and all that kind. Some call them painted hunting dogs, African painted hunting, all those names. But the correct scientific name is Lycon pictus because of the multicolors. It's a protected species right now in Zimbabwe. It's one of the unique animals that are found in, well, not many parts of Zimbabwe. Probably a few national parks, Konarejo, Manaples, Wange National Park, and some pockets of the country here and there. But generally, painted dogs are those kind of species that have a unique family structure. They live in families, they look after each other. And the most important thing is that one member of the painted dog pack has its own unique responsibility in the pack. Besides having its own pattern different from everybody else, but they have a role to play, which if one of them dies either in a snare or in a roadkill, that responsibility has to be shouldered by somebody else in the pack. And that becomes a difficult task for everybody to survive. Um, at the present moment, we have 6.5 to 7,000 dogs left in the wild, and they are only found in Africa and nowhere else in the wild. We are probably hoping that by the interventions in the next 5, 6 years, 10 years, 20 years, the pack sizes will probably improve, and probably the population as well will also increase. But at the moment, that's the numbers that we have. Looking at the threats in Zimbabwe, generally the identified threat is poaching. People set snares in the bush, not for dogs, but they set snares for antelopes, kudus, impalas, duikers, and all the like. And that's the same prey species that dogs continue to hunt day in, day out. And by virtue of them being territorial, they happen to go into snares. They become more vulnerable to snares than the impalas and kudus themselves. So that's one of the biggest threats that we have identified. Um, and the other one is roadkills. We have a lot of territories, painted dog territories that are either between communities, or there's a road that passes right in the middle of the park. And it's a highway kind of, tarred road, speeding cars and all the like. So we have lost quite a number of dogs in road kills. And the other threat is habitat loss. When people take over wildlife territories or areas to recycle communities, the dogs lose their place, their habitat. And that reduction means a reduction even in their prey species and all that kind. So it's one of those threats. But if you look at everything, most of the threats are human induced. It's only disease that is natural, and which is not very much. Although at some point we had an issue with distemper and rabies, but we always try to contain those kind of threats. But poaching and roadkills are coming tops. So those are some of the threats.
Mm. Yeah,
Mm.
and that's a lot. And so let's then talk about some of the solutions and maybe could you give a little backstory about how painted dog conservation came to be? And then we'll go into how you all are working into solving it. But yeah, maybe give us a little bit of context. So clearly there was an obvious need. These predators
Mhm.
are incredible. They're filling a complete different niche in these ecosystems and they're living with lions and leopards and all of these
Yep.
other big predators that they're competing with, but they're doing what they do so uniquely. And it's very important that we keep them. So, okay, great. There was a need identified. Why did painted dog conservation get started?
Okay.
How and why, maybe even when too. So maybe a little bit of history on that too will really help
Okay.
paint this picture.
All right. Painted dog conservation was basically started, I think, in 1998, around that time,
Mm,
uh, when somebody, I think came all the way from United Kingdom, if my memory serves me well, to do a research on these African wild dogs. And hence, when this, you know, doctorate student left, um, we decided that something has to be done. And painted dog conservation started at that particular point. But mainly, it was what was identified during that research was more of the threats that I've just mentioned. It was more about, animal behavior. How do dogs behave? How do they look after each other? In each pack, there's an alpha male, there's an alpha female. The other pack members just assisting upbringing of the rest of the puppies and all that kind. So that's how most of the activities that we are doing today started. But most importantly, the threats themselves have kind of been the leading, uh, vision behind everything. We in painted dog conservation, we thrive. We want to create a conducive environment where painted dogs can thrive. That's our
mm,
mission. And how do we do it? We do it through action and education. The action part refers to the research work that is done, monitoring of packs in Wanga National Park and outside Wanga National Park. We also have a rehabilitation center nearby where in the event that we find, injured dog or sick dogs, we bring them to the rehabilitation center, engage veterinary doctors from the local government doctors or even private doctors here. And then we make sure that that dog is released back into the wild. And a good story around that is that we have one of the alpha females that was brought into the rehab and was released back many years back. And when we try to trace, we are probably looking at more than 130 something dogs that came offsprings from that
wow.
particular dog. So if we had not rehabilitated that dog, we would have lost all those 137 dogs that have been offsprings from Vasile. Um, the other action is the anti-poaching unit, where we have rangers that patrol every day trying to remove snares from the bush and making sure that the environment where dogs hunt and everything is conducive for their survival. And that's part of one of the actions. And then the education part, that's my baby. That's where I come in. It's the in situ conservation education program that we designed for local school children. We actually have a 4 days camp free of charge for the children. They don't pay anything. And we bring them into camp and teach them conservation concepts, wildlife concepts, nature concepts, everything that has to do with their surrounding, because they live just adjacent to the national park. So it's a very important aspect for them to understand how to coexist. So that's a program that normally, takes us the whole year, because we don't leave any school behind. We make sure that all the primary schools that surround Wanganesa Park, they come into the camp. And at the moment, as I speak, we probably have taken 13,000 plus children
That's
into the park.
amazing.
Yeah, since we started. So that's what we have covered in terms of the local population. And just that makes us so proud of what we have been doing. And of late, the most interesting part of it is that the children that are coming to the bush camp now, their parents came to the bush camp when they were grade sixes. So now the generation gap, we're closing it. We are almost there. And
Oh,
yeah, so we also have conservation clubs. When the children go back to school, we don't just say, okay, you're done with the education program, bye-bye. No, we follow them up, and then we have activities that they undertake back at school. And those are some of the activities that include competitions. Uh, they have other environmental friendly activities like tree planting, gully reclamation, cleanup campaigns, all those kind of activities that engage them with the nature that they live around. And we also have community meetings. We do conduct community meetings where we meet traditional leaders, engage them, show them how best it is to live, to coexist with wildlife. Because in a way, we always make sure that people understand that they are not going to move to any other place besides where they are. And the animals are not going to move to any other place besides where they are. So the only thing is to coexist, understand behavior of these animals, understand how best we can engage each other, the animals and the people. Okay.
wow.
Mhm.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible. You're doing
Yeah.
so many amazing things. And I love that how you said like these people are going to live here, the wildlife is going to live here. So we gotta be good neighbors somehow.